So in the Cipher, I dig deep into all the sacred cows I could find in the modern church, whether it's human sexuality, marriage, things like that. I'll give you an example. Marriage is between one man and one woman. We're told that all the time. But what about the parable that Jesus told us that there are 10 virgins that have to find a way to maintain enough oil to enter the bridegroom's chamber? That's one person with 10 virgins. It doesn't pass the muster, right? Jesus says that you'll come from your mother and your father and you'll become one flesh. That sounds more like a baby to me. If you have a mother and a father and they create a new being, a new flesh, that new flesh is a child. Ephesians 5:31-32 says that marriage is a mystery. If it's a mystery, then we don't know what that is. We pretend like we know, but we don't know. So if marriage is between Christ and the church and it's a mystery, it means that it's marriage with Jesus. It's not marriage between two temporal people. It's coming together in a spiritual form. That's the child. That's the human child. And that's the only way we can come to Jesus, is what he says, is as a child. We need to learn how to be born again. We need to understand what that means. And the Cipher goes deep to try to figure out what that means. Jesus taught us something funny in the Sermon on the Mount. He said, don't take any oaths. He said, don't take any oaths at all. But then we take marriage vows, right? But think about this. If the church controls marriage, from antiquity, if we go way back, if the church controls marriage in the 3rd century, the 4th century, the 5th century, it can be the kingmaker. It can decide what countries can be married. It can decide who the king and queen are. It can decide a lot of things. But as it turns out, the Bible says not to take oaths. It says not to take a vow. And if you're not to take an oath, then how do you have a marriage vow? The answer to this is simple. The Bible is confusing, and it was translated in a time when the church had the ability to be kingmakers, to decide what kings and queens could marry. They controlled the world. It was all power. It was all money. Did you know the Apostle Paul said that marriage is between Christ and the church, and it's a great mystery? If it's a mystery, how do we have it figured out? The point is, we run around and we tell people what marriage is, and we tell people how marriage works and how it operates, while the Apostle Paul says it's a mystery. Let that sink in. It's difficult to understand. It's difficult to appreciate. If it's a mystery that God put before us, then we don't necessarily understand what that means.